Hi there, this is Chris from MoneyHub, and this video looks at whether or not pet insurance is worth buying. So pets are not cheap. It's a common question amongst many New Zealand pet owners, with the cost of litter, with the costs of food, with the cost of boarding when you go away, vet fees, everything like that. The question really is, well, do I need pet insurance because everything else costs lots of money? What am I going to get from it? What can I claim on, etc., etc. So what we've done is we've put together a very comprehensive guide. This is called Should I Get Pet Insurance? And it's listed below in the description. We've also linked out to our pet insurance guide, which compares a whole bunch of policies and different plans. So just be aware that both of those are very useful resources. So our guide looks at what is pet insurance. We then, determine whether or not it's worth it or not worth it, looking at what it covers, the possible costs. It depends, of course, of the age of the animal and also a whole bunch of other stuff. Things to consider when looking for pet insurance, and must-know facts, and then some frequently asked questions. So I'm just going to dive straight into it right now. So what is pet insurance? Well, it is insurance for your pet, which sounds kind of obvious, but there's different levels. So what you'll do is you'll pay a monthly premium. That's just a monthly fee, usually charged to your credit card or direct debited from your bank account, etc., etc. And you can choose a level of policy. Usually that's going to range from accident only, which is just going to cover if something happens as an accident, not sort of any kind of long-term issues. The basic plan, then there'll be a medium plan, and then there'll be a premium plan. So the more you pay, the more cover you get, as you could expect. And at the same time, you'll also get, further coverage for non-medical things like dental perhaps, or some sort of a rebate for other things. So what we've noticed is that whilst more and more pet insurance have entered the market, when we first started looking at pet insurance through our comprehensive guide, we found there were about 4 pet insurance, and now there's about 8. They're all competing for the same amount of pets, but with everything going up, cost of living, everything, there hasn't been a decrease in the cost of premiums despite the competitions. So just to let you know that the older the pet, the less likely the pet insurer is going to insure it, just because this means for them it's going to be added risk, it's going to be extra cost because they're likely to develop something or have some something inherent which hasn't been diagnosed yet. So be aware that the younger that your pet is, the easier it is to insure them and the cheaper it is. Why do you need pet insurance? So it's really just to cover those disastrous incidents which we read about, in the media. We sort of hear about from friends. Oh, I pulled my dog's legs off something, like I was trying to get my dog off a hedgehog or something, and that was $3,000. And then, this chipped it, like my cat chipped a tooth. That was $4,000 because of some complications. What pet insurance does is really diminishes these costs down to either a co-payment where you pay perhaps 20% of it, or just you pay an excess, which is going to be like $150, $250 or whatever, and then the rest is taken by the insurer. So do you need it? It really comes down to how much you want to pay for your pet should something go wrong. And it's just it's something that you have to talk about within your family, or just make an assessment based on your overall finances. So do be aware that medical costs are high, and it's not that vets make lots of money, it's just that the cost of animal treatment is very, very expensive. We compare it to human care, but that isn't subsidized from the government like pet care. Pet care isn't subsidized like human care is, so that's why it seems relatively expensive. So we've determined that we don't think pet insurance is a great idea, if you have a relatively old animal, just because it's likely to have very high premiums. The same thing if it has many pre-existing conditions, that means that they're going to have to be declared, and then you're not going to get cover for those, and then something may be related that comes up to those, so then there won't be cover for that either. If your pet is spending a lot of time indoors, then that also lowers the risk that they're going to be injured or get into a fight with someone else, or some other animal. So just be aware that does sort of make pet insurance less worthwhile overall. And then lastly, if you have a high disposable income just to pay for things without sort of worrying too much about the costs, then that's also a factor which can mean that pet insurance isn't suitable. But we've also thought that where pet insurance is strong and certainly valuable for people is when it's like past the early age, but it's younger. So usually within the kind of 1-2 years to up to 7 or 8. For purebred pets, where they maybe have some conditions that come up with them, then that can be worthwhile because they will be covered. And at the same time, if you don't have money set aside or would struggle to pay off like a vet bill, then it's definitely worthwhile considering. At the same time, if your pet is going to be roaming outside a lot, then certainly it places it at higher risk of an accident or something else developing, stepping on something, eating something, etc., etc. So that means that pet insurance can be more useful in such situations. So what does it cover? So as I previously said, there's a few different policy types. You have the accident-only types. That's just pure accidents. Anything from sort of injuries, gets into a fight, that kind of stuff. Those will be the cheapest plans. Then you get your accident plus illness pet. That's sort of if they have sort of developed some sort of issue, then that's going to be covered. And then you've got your fully comprehensive, and they can range from about $40 to $100 per month. It does sound a lot, but you do get a lot of cover with that. So it is, some people just go accident only or fully comprehensive. Sometimes they're like, oh, I don't want to do the mid plan just in case, something's not covered that I need. I'm paying all this money anyway. But it's something that you need to do to make an assessment yourself. We strongly suggest looking at our pet insurance comparison guide. So we constantly update that for everything you need to know, and we've got a whole bunch of different tables which I suggest having a look through, which take you through the different insurers, and basically we've determined what costs are what, made a policy comparison, but you're really looking at the limits in the excess and the monthly policy cost to try and work out what's right for you. Sort of going further than that, we look at how much does it actually cost. So back to our tables here. This was research done in late 2022, but we can see that for an accident-only policy for a young Jack Russell dog, it's around sort of $10 to $15 per month. Some of them are a little bit more expensive, but then there won't be other things. Medium policies range from about $40 to $60 or $30 in some case to $60. Some have co-payments and some don't, which makes it comparing quite not tricky, but you just need to be aware of what you're actually going to be paying for later on. And then premium policies range from about $40 to around $90. Big variance there, but you'll always be looking for options which are the best value, and there is a spread between them because often pet insurers don't think that people will compare, but we're always comparing, and we're making sure that we're shortlisting people that are value based rather than just taking money without providing the additional benefits for doing so. How much does pet insurance cost? I've covered that now. Who are the top pet insurers? So you've got your large companies, and then you've got your specialist providers. So AA Pet Insurance, because that's part of the AA insurance group. You've got Southern Cross doing it. You've got Cove, which is a specialist home lender, but it's now doing pet insurance. And then you've got Tower. Then you've got challenger brands, which are out there doing specialist, dedicated to pets. PD Insurance is the newest entrance in that market. They've been very aggressive with marketing throughout New Zealand with vets. Pet Cover, that's a long-standing company which covers sort of all sort of things that used to be called Pet Plan. And then you've got Pet Insure, which has been going for many years in New Zealand as well. And then things to consider. So this is when you're determining whether or not you actually want pet insurance. Look at the type of plan. What do you really want? And I would suggest getting quotes for all different types. Accident, medium, and fully comprehensive, just so you understand what you're going to be paying and what's included, and so you can make a proper comparison. And if the costs aren't too dissimilar for what you're wanting, or you can, raise the excess, then, it can be peace of mind just to go for full cover, fully comprehensive, rather than, the medium plan or accident only. So there's 3 facts here that you really need to know about. The first one is the older your pet, the higher your monthly premiums are going to be. That's pretty much a given, just because the risk is so much higher for the insurer. So be aware of that. At the same time, if you're switching policies, then it's likely going to be difficult if that pet already has pre-existing conditions. And that's really unwise for many people. Some people try to do it, but it can be complicated. So just be aware of that once you've chosen a pet insurer at, say, the age of 1 or 6 months for your pet, it's usually cheaper to stay with it. And saying that, not always. So, there's always things to consider there as well. And you won't be able to buy a policy for a pet after a certain age. That's usually going to be 7 or 8 years, just because the insurer won't take the risk. So be aware that is some limiting factor there. Of course, some dogs live for 12, 13. I think I had a dog that lived for about 15 years, which was quite a long time for a Jack Russell. But you're not going to get cover after a certain period because of the risk to the pet insurer. They just don't want to be on the hook for years and years should the dog sort of develop something and then need sort of endless care. And then finally, make sure that you realize that pet insurance isn't all about sort of financial benefits. There's a lot of anxiety and a lot of sort of stress that comes with pet ownership. So if you can, have a cushion financially to prepare for anything sort of uncertain or untoward or anything that's unpleasant that happens to your pet, then paying the monthly premium can just give that peace of mind. So that's fine if the dog gets sick, because I won't have that financial stress. I've got my pet insurance policy. So for many people, that is, of course, worth buying, but it's at the same time, it's not for everyone. So don't just rush into it if you're not sure if the ongoing premiums are going to be affordable, and also a whole bunch of considerations to make there. So concluding, we believe that pet insurance does give you a great option for treatment at the lowest possible price if you shop around. And the policies are very comprehensive. If the higher up you go, because of the new entrants in the market in the recent years, then we've seen policies become a little bit better, not any cheaper, but certainly much more kind of pet owner friendly. And of course, they're all competing to win you and your pet over. So sometimes there are promotions around. I know throughout MoneyHub on our pet insurance guide, we list those, and it's just worth knowing that there are sign up bonuses available just to help you kind of work into the sort of long-term costs of pet insurance. What we've done with this guide is really to provide insight, as to whether or not pet insurance is worth it. But ultimately, the decision is yours to make, and it's not for your vet to make it for you. It's not for anyone else. You need to be, certain that you can afford to do it, that you're going to enjoy doing it. You're not going to deprioritize it. So just, think about it. Look at, if you do quotes, if you get quotes done, make comparisons, weigh it all up, look at our pet insurance guide, comparison research for some tips there. Then you can make an informed choice about whether or not it's right for you. Many people it is right, but at the same time, not always. Then we've got some frequently asked questions, and generally, who is pet insurance for? It's really for someone who wants no stress with their pet when it comes to sort of any type of accident. Of course, any type of problem will be uncomfortable for pet owners, but that financial burden is removed with the pet insurance policy. And many people just may not or don't have the financial resources to pay these vet bills, hence the reason for pet insurance. And what happens, another question that we've had from users, so people find, okay, well, I've got pet insurance, but my pet doesn't get sick. Should I just cancel my pet insurance policy? This really comes down to, I mean, it's great if you have an animal that's not ill, but you're really going to have to sort of consider the long term. So yes, that can make sense in some instances, but no in others. So it really just comes down to, how much savings do you have? What's the likelihood that your animal is going to be ill? I mean, of course, you can't predict that, but you can make some sort of judgment. And then looking at, possibly setting up an emergency fund instead, so you can cancel your pet insurance and then just self-insure for it. Some people ask us as well, like, do I need pet insurance if I live in the city in like an apartment? My cat isn't going outside much. My dog doesn't go outside much. And, should I really, if they do, I'm with them. That is really comes down to you, that because they can still develop illnesses like beyond going for walks on, like if a dog goes for a walk on a lead, it can still develop sort of long-term illnesses. So living inside or spending less time outdoors won't prohibit those. You really just need to make a full assessment as to what the risk is, what the costs are, and whether or not pet insurance will be right for you. And the best way to do that is really just to get as many quotes as possible. Does ACC cover pet injuries or sort of accidents? So surprisingly, this is a question that people ask because they think, well, there must be some sort of government support. There's absolutely nothing. And so this is why pet insurance is kind of that fallback protection for such problems. So thank you very much for staying with me during this. I know it's a tricky topic, but we really want to help out and sort of make sure that our guides are as comprehensive as possible. So if you do have any questions, please leave them in the comments below. We love when people do that. It really helps get our guides as comprehensive as possible. We're always improving them. We're always making sure that there's things to add, things that we haven't thought about, new things, all sorts of things. Pets are one of those things. There's so many variables in them. So if you do have any questions, we'd be very welcome and would be very responsive to anything that you leave in the comment section below. Thanks very much.